Hey, this is Sober to Stay's Quick Fix. Today we're talking about your bodyguards, the ones you hired 30 years ago to protect you, the ones who are very dedicated, very loyal, and very confused, and are absolutely wrecking your recovery while sincerely believing they're saving your life. Here's the image I want you to carry through everything else. Picture a bodyguard, right? Big guy, sunglasses, earpiece, hired 30 years ago or however long to physically block the door of a house you used to live in. The house where bad things happen, the house where being honest got you punished, being vulnerable got you hurt, and feeling sad got you a lecture about how other kids had it much worse. And hell, he took his job seriously. He stood at the door, he blocked anything threatening from coming in, and he was doing exactly what, if we're honest, what you needed him to do. And he's still doing it, even though you moved out of that house 15 years ago, 30 years ago, even though nobody lives there, even though the house has now since been condemned and torn down and replaced with a freaking Starbucks. He's still on the porch. He's still checking IDs. He's still very professionally blocking visitors from entering an empty lot. And that's called a defense mechanism. That's all it is. A bodyguard you hired at age 5 or 7 or 12 who is spectacularly overqualified for the threat level of your current life and who is still on the clock, earning overtime, taking it very seriously, refusing to clock out even though nobody's tried to get in the house for decades. He's not your enemy. He saved your life back then. He's just incredibly loyal to a contract that should have ended around the time, I guess, the Spice Girls farewell tour happened. This concept came from a guy named Sigmund Freud, who had a few good ideas surrounded by a lot of weird ones. His daughter Anna cleaned it all up in around 1936, which is essentially the same year Bill Wilson started getting AA off the ground, him and Dr. Bob, which is a coincidence I find personally delightful. And for 100 years now, clinicians and people in recovery have kept rediscovering the same insight, that the mind protects itself. It's not a purpose, not in ways you can feel happening. The protection runs below conscious awareness. Your bodyguard doesn't text you for permission. He just steps in front of the door. In addiction, this isn't a side issue. It's a structural one. The defenses don't just hang out next to your addiction like awkward party guests. They actively maintain it. That's important. They are the architecture that lets you continue a destructive pattern while sincerely believing everything is fine, until it isn't. And then even that will get defended against because the bodyguard is frankly an overachiever. So let me introduce you to the main bodyguards. There are 12 of them, really, but I'm going to cover the 5 who I think do the heaviest lifting in active addiction. The union reps, the lifers, the ones with the most seniority. And you'll recognize at least one of them, but probably several, maybe all. I recognize all 5 of myself, which was a humbling Saturday afternoon I do not particularly want to repeat. So first up, you got denial. It's a classic, right? The original bodyguard, the patriarch, the one standing in front of the door labeled the problem and refusing to let any information through. The thing most people get wrong about denial is that it's not lying, right? Lying requires knowing the truth and choosing to say something else. Denial is way more impressive than that. Denial generally doesn't see the truth as true. The mind's sincere conviction that the threatening information is not what it appears to be. I don't have a problem. I just like to drink. I'm nothing like those people in the meetings. My family, they're overreacting. They've always been kind of dramatic. You cannot argue someone out of this. The bodyguard doesn't hear the rational argument. He absorbs it, right? They're just worried. They don't understand. They're protecting their own issues, right? Denial is the founding document of active addiction. It rarely breaks because somebody convinced it. It breaks because reality finally finds the one angle the bodyguard wasn't catching. There's a case study, that I've talked about, heard about, whatever. A guy named Robert, 52, drinking a bottle of wine, a few whiskeys every evening. Wife left like 4 years ago. Liver enzymes elevated. Job suffering. Doctor's been warning him for years, but none of it touched him. The bodyguard had all of those exit it's covered. I mean, what finally broke through? His daughter started needing to have a drink before she can, I guess, even call him. And that detail, really, the bodyguard had not in 20 years considered guarding that specific door. 3 days after Robert noticed it, he was intrigued. The denial didn't break because somebody finally found the right argument. It broke because reality found the one weirdly specific Tuesday the bodyguard wasn't looking, if that makes sense. Then you got rationalization, denial's articulate cousin. He went to law school, has opinions about wine pairings. Where denial just stonewalls the door, rationalization opens it a crack and looks at the problem and immediately constructs an extremely impressive legal brief for why it isn't one. I work hard. I've earned this. Stress at this level requires some kind of release. Everyone drinks at these events. It's a professional necessity. The science on moderate drinking it's actually quite mixed. And the arguments are good. That's, I guess, the worst part, because they borrow credibility from real facts. The stress is real. Work is hard. Trauma has effects. Like, Mediterranean cultures do drink with dinner. Every brick in the wall is real. The wall itself is the problem. The bodyguard isn't blocking the door. He's holding a press conference in front of it. That is rationalization. Then you have minimization. The bodyguard turning the volume on the alarm down until you can kind of sleep through it. This one's sneaky because he sounds reasonable. He's not denying the problem. He's just performing the cognitive equivalent of, it's fine. Sure, I drink too much sometimes, but, I'm not an alcoholic. I've had a few bad nights, indeed, but overall, I've had it under control. It's not like I'm shooting heroin. It's just pills. Other people have it much worse, right? Minimization is perfectly calibrated to produce the response that it's not great, but it's not bad, which is exactly the response that allows things to continue exactly as they are, indefinitely, while everyone around you slowly loses their damn minds. And it's contagious. The whole family ends up minimizing together, because it's not that bad. It's so much more comfortable than, this is bad. Now everybody in the house has the same bodyguard. It's a freaking family business. Then you got projection. This bodyguard doesn't even pretend to guard the door. He's got an arm. He throws the uncomfortable feeling across the room and pins it on whoever's standing nearest. My partner is controlling and doesn't trust me. Said by someone who has given substantial reasons not to be trusted. My sponsor thinks she's better than me. My family just wants to see me fail. People in those meetings act like they're saints. All right, the newly sober person who's heavily projecting often appears from the outside to be living in a world entirely populated by critical, judgmental, controlling people. And from the inside, it's exactly how it feels. And almost always the criticism, the judgment, the disapproval, those are your own. You just got an arm. And you've outsourced them. Projection is the bodyguard who got tired of standing at the door and started a podcast. Then you have intellectualization, easy for me to say. The bodyguard with a PhD, the one I had to talk about because I personally ran this one for years, and it almost killed me precisely because it looked like the opposite of defense. Intellectualization is engaging with emotionally threatening material through abstract analytical thinking as a way of not actually feeling it. I mean, understanding your patterns in exhaustive cognitive detail while remaining entirely unmoved by them, it looks like insight. Sounds like self-awareness. Your therapist loves you. Your group thinks you're freaking impressive. And you're not doing shit. You're doing a very convincing performance of the work, and you're getting graded on it. Think about a woman named Elena, 6 months sober. 3 separate therapists have called her one of the most self-aware clients that, they've ever worked with. She can explain her attachment style, her family system, her trauma history, her neurology, and probably yours too, if we're being honest. In 6 months of therapy, she has not cried once. One day, her therapist interrupts her in the middle of an analysis and asks, Hey, what are you feeling right now, like in your body? Lena tries to analyze the question. She stops. She notices something, a tightness in her chest, maybe a sadness or a mourning, maybe fear, and finds, to her considerable inconvenience, that she cannot immediately produce a label for it. I don't know, she says. And then, to her further inconvenience, she starts crying. Her sponsor later tells her that "I don't know" was the first thing that you said in 6 months that wasn't already finished before it came out of your mouth. If you ever sat in therapy and absolutely crushed the analysis of your own pain without ever feeling any of it, congratulations. You've met my favorite bodyguard. And these guys don't operate alone. I mean, that's important, right? They're a team. They got a group chat, a Teams thread. Denial says, there's no problem. Rationalization handles the press. Minimization manages public expectations. Projection deals with the people getting too close. They back each other up. They're a fortress. And what's frustrating and also weirdly tender is that the thing the fortress is protecting was genuinely worth protecting once. 5-year-old you, 7-year-old you, the kid who needed somebody to stand at the door because nobody else was going to. Right? The fortress isn't malicious. It's just employed under an outdated contract. And here's the meta insight that's worth more than any single bodyguard. Every defense is information. The denial is pointing at truth that feels intolerable. The rationalization is pointing at a behavior you're ashamed of. The projection is pointing at feelings you can't yet hold as your own. The intellectualization is pointing at an emotional reality threatening to approach directly. The defense isn't the enemy. The defense is a map. Slightly inverted, slightly distorted, but a map of exactly the territory that you need to explore. So following the bodyguard back to whatever he's standing or she's standing in front of, that's the actual work. So now the fix. 3 steps. And I want to flag something before I get into them. This is the slowest of the 3-step fixes we've done so far, because you can't rush this work. The bodyguards have been on the job for decades. They got pensions, they got benefits, they retire gradually. So step 1, catch the bodyguard. All right, the bodyguard is whatever automatically intercepts a thought, a feeling, or a piece of information before you can reach it. The argument that pops up, right, the second somebody suggests you might be drinking too much, the pivot to analysis when somebody asks how you feel, the flash of irritation at a sponsor that doesn't quite match the moment, the way certain memories simply will not come into focus, like a TV that mysteriously on the wrong input, right? That's the bodyguard. He's at his post, and your job is to notice he's there. Oh, there he is. He just stepped in front of the door, labeled grief, or shame, or fear, or you actually have a problem and your daughter is having a really hard time with it. You don't have to fire him. You don't have to wrestle him. You just have to notice him and say, hey, what's up? Step 2, get curious about what he's guarding. I mean, every defense is protecting something, right? The denial is standing in front of a truth that at some point in your life felt unsurvivable. The rationalization is standing in front of a behavior you're ashamed of. The projection is standing in front of self-judgment that you can't yet hold without flinching. So instead of attacking him, ask the bodyguard what he's protecting. What would I feel if this defense weren't here? What's the fear underneath the rationalization? What truth is the denial standing in front of? And that's really the most important word here is curiosity. Not interrogation, curiosity. Get curious. The bodyguard has been doing this job since the Reagan era. He doesn't need to be yelled at. He needs to be approached with respect. Maybe a sandwich. All right. Step 3, build the safety that makes him unnecessary. And this, to be frank, it's a long game. It's the only thing that actually works. You cannot dismantle a defense through willpower. You cannot argue a bodyguard into early retirement. He has tenure. What you can do, and this is what the rooms, therapy, genuine recovery community are for, is gradually build enough safety that the defense becomes unnecessary. You feel the grief in front of a sponsor, and the sponsor doesn't recoil. You admit the shame in a meeting, and the room doesn't punish you. You let the intellectualization drop for 10 seconds in therapy, and your therapist receives what's underneath without flinching. Each one of those experiences is a small memo to the bodyguard that the threat is over. You could step down. The house is safe. Now, granted, he won't believe the memo the first time. He won't believe it the 10th time. He's human. But eventually, and this is the miracle of recovery, this is what genuinely happens to people who stay. He starts taking longer breaks. The doors stay open longer. More of life starts getting through. You're allowed to stop defending. And what's on the other side is not oblivion. It is, eventually, the life you've been protecting yourself from having. The bodyguard, he did his job. He kept you alive long enough to get you here. He doesn't deserve to be fired. Deserves a gold watch, a thank you note, and a really long vacation. Send him on it. Slowly, lovingly. He'll come back. He's union, remember? But each time he does, he'll take a little longer to find the door, and a little more of your actual life will be waiting on the other side. See you next time.